Hi guys, welcome again. In this short video, I would like to demonstrate how to perform a download and installation of Oracle Virtualbox. The way to go there is I will access the Internet Explorer or the browser. So let me go to, I will create a new window and I will access Oracle VirtualBox. Now it comes here from the list of saved. So the website is www.virtualbox.org. Now keep in mind it's an organization based. One thing to remember that Oracle VirtualBox was acquired by Oracle almost like 8 or 9 years ago, and now is an Oracle product. Now notice that VirtualBox is the current version here is 6.1, and there is different downloads that are available. Now Oracle VirtualBox is a virtualization software that allow your machine to host multiple operating system or multiple virtual machines. So it will become like a lab, or you can set up a lab inside your machine. Now remember, Oracle VirtualBox is a client based, not server based. In other words, it's not a professional version. It is good for demonstration as well as client based. It can run on Windows, Linux, Mac OS X as well. So when you go to download, you can see the different option here. Downloads, you have to choose the download related to your host machine or operating system. My machine here is running Windows 10, so I will definitely be looking for to download Oracle VirtualBox for Windows host. And remember, the second option here is OS X. So if you have a Mac machine, this is where to go. If you have Linux, also you have to go to the Linux option here. If you have Solaris host, which is basically the Unix operating system, you will go to the Unix Solaris host. Now I have Windows. Now the current release as of today, which is August 2020, it's 6.1.12 platform package. So I'm gonna select the Windows, and it gives you the option here to run. So basically it will download. The size of this small download or launcher is 103 megabyte, and of course you have the choice of saving it and then running it later, or just as soon as it is finishes the download, then it will start the installation. So I'm gonna choose run. Now it's gonna download, and remember that it will give you also a bunch of warnings, so you have to pay attention. Now this is here the icon for the installation, as you can see that from my taskbar. So I'm gonna open it up. Now here it shows that the download actually was completed. Okay, the download was completed, and because I selected run, it will go to the run, and it says here welcome to the Oracle virtual machine. So VM stands for virtual machine, VirtualBox 6.1.12 setup. So this wizard will guide you through the process. Most of the time you're going to be selecting the default, as you will find out. So I'm going to go to the next window. Here I don't have to do any changes, but what you need to understand is that this is where the installation is going to happen. So it's going to happen in my C drive. Program files is going to create a directory called Oracle, and then another subdirectory called VirtualBox, and this is going to hold the application of the virtualization or the virtual box. You have the chance to choose different location if you want, but again, there is no need to change that unless if you have a D drive, you want to put it on the D drive, or if you want to put it on different drive. Remember, this is the application location. Okay, so I'm going to keep the default, select next. Now here is going to custom setup will basically these are like shortcuts or to create a start menu entries. So I'll keep everything here. Again, I don't need to change any of those default. Basically, this is how the options for you to run the VirtualBox. So I'm gonna select next. Now remember, it's gonna give you some warning because the Oracle VirtualBox, it needs to be interfaced with the proper network adapter. So that's why it gives you a warning here. Installing Oracle VirtualBox networking feature will reset the network connection temporarily. So nothing to worry. Is going to just, it's gonna take few seconds or milliseconds, and then it will continue. So of course, I'm going to do I'm gonna say yes, proceed with the installation. There is no harm whatsoever because it needs to install the different component associated to the networking. Select yes, and then the process begins. So here, ready to install. Again, I'm following the wizard. I'm accepting the default. I'm gonna select install. The process usually takes a few seconds because again, you are changing things on your system. The system will alert you that there is a change. So of course you have to allow, if you are the administrator, of course, otherwise it's not gonna run. I'm the administrator of this machine. This is Windows 10. So I'm gonna select yes because I trust this application and I want it to be installed in my machine. Now this is the process of installation. We already finished the download process. Now this is the installation process for Oracle VirtualBox version 6.1.12. Again, the process altogether from download to installation of Oracle VirtualBox takes about like few minutes. It depends on the performance, of course, of your download, the internet, as well as the machine itself. The VirtualBox, actually, when it is installed, it requires some resources. We'll talk about the resources. Now here it says that Oracle VirtualBox has been installed. It's complete, and it gives you the choice of starting it automatically if you want, and it says finish. So what's going to happen is going to load or start the VirtualBox for you, the application itself. Now it's right here. There's an icon here. So actually I can safely just close this window. I don't need it. I already downloaded. Now when you become more expert, there are additional things that you can upload. There are extension pack, there are developer kit. Those are for advanced users, so I'll describe them in another video. But I can close the browser, and this is the Oracle VirtualBox. Okay, and keeping in mind that because I have several virtual machine that was created before, and that's why of course, those have been created. Normally what you see is this. I'm going to remove, when I remove them, when I remove all this, I'm gonna say remove only, because I don't want to delete all my virtual machines. So I'm gonna remove only. I just want to show you how it should look like. So I'm gonna remove only the virtual machine, not delete all files, because I'm gonna need them later in my other trainings. So I'm gonna remove again only. Now you don't have to do that because I'm demonstrating here. So what happened is that when you install Oracle VirtualBox, this is exactly what you're gonna see. Empty. There's nothing in there, no virtual machine. Now remember, Oracle VirtualBox is like a box. It's a lab. And this, in the left side, it will show all the different virtual machines that you have. And of course, you have nothing right now. And basically, you can start creating machines. We call them virtual machines, VM. And basically, you're taking one server, like this machine is a host, and you start slicing it by adding new machines or virtual machines. Okay? I'm going to demonstrate quickly how to create a new machine, basically, or a virtual machine. So I'm going to use, again, there's a file, there's a machine, there's help, and in the machine there's a new, and new, you can start creating a new machine. And again, you can use the icons here as well if you want to. I'm gonna go to the, anyway, I like to go to the menu, main menu, machine, new. Now here is the process of creating a new virtual machine. Now if you are planning to install, for example, Linux, you need to give it a name. It's like, this is the machine name. It has nothing to do with what's inside the machine. It's the machine name itself. So I want to call it, for example, I want to call it VM1 underscore Linux. Now, for example, I want to have this machine ready as a machine to allow me to install Linux. So I'm creating VM1 for the purpose of installing Linux operating system. Now notice here there is a machine folder, so automatically it's going to be saved under your home directory. So it will create a folder for the machine, and it's going to be called virtual. This is the name of the directory that's going to hold your virtual machines, which is VMs. So it is called VirtualBox space VMs. Now this is a directory. Okay, this is a directory that is in your C drive. This is by default. You can choose to put it somewhere else if you want to, but this virtual machine basically is going to be created as a file under this directory. Now because I put the keyword Linux, it knew that I wanted to have this machine for Linux operating system. Now obviously I will keep the Linux. Okay, but also remember, you can use VirtualBox or virtual machine to install many different operating systems: Linux, Unix, which is a Solaris, also Unix BSD, Berkeley software distribution, older operating system like OS2, Mac OS X, others as well. Okay, so you can, of course, Microsoft Windows, you can use it, which is Windows 7, 8, or 10, or even Windows servers and so on. Now, of course, it will, since Linux, for example, there are so many different distribution for Linux. There is Fedora, there is Ubuntu, there is, you need to choose the appropriate one for your installation. As you can see here, it gives you different choices. There are 32-bit edition, there are 64-bit edition. For example, let's say I want to use it to install Fedora, let's say 32-bit. So I will select Fedora 32, and so basically I'm creating a virtual machine with these characteristics. So I need also to configure resources like memory, how much memory I want to allocate for this virtual machine, how much storage, and the operating system. Basically, I'm trying to use my host machine and slice it to multiple virtual machines. So select next. Now this is the memory. Basically my machine is, I'm blessed, I have 16 gig. Notice that this is from here, this bar here is 16 gigabytes. So this machine that I have is 16 gigabyte, and this is actually my recommendation. If anybody wants to buy a new machine, they should have at least minimum 16 gigabyte. Now it's telling me that, okay, the minimum that I could start this machine or operating system is 1 gigabyte. Okay, so 1 gigabyte will be sufficient to uh, to have for this machine, but I like to have enough because I have plenty of resources, plenty of memory. So I would like to use 2 gigabyte for this machine. Okay, because it will improve the performance as well as the loading process. So I'm gonna use 2 gigabyte and move to the next. Now here is about the storage, the hard disk drive. Now the recommended size is 8 gigabyte. I don't like to have 8 gigabyte. I like to have more. So anyway, you have three options here: to create the hard disk or not to create, or to use an existing one. No, you will create a new, actually, virtual hard disk. So I'm gonna keep the default, select create. It's going to be virtual disk image. Basically it's going to be a file. So the whole virtual machine is basically a file, and that's the power of virtualization. It's related to cloud computing. It's basically, you have an operating system, you have a machine inside a file that you can move from one place into another without impacting the users community. So I'm going to select the VDI. Now in the future, if you decided to add a new hard disk drive, probably you're going to select other options here, but for me now, I want to use the VDI. Of course, there's an expert mode. This is for advanced users, but I will go for the default ones. Next. Now, keeping in mind that you could have the storage to be fixed, means that it's going to be fixed all the time. So no matter what, in your machine is going to have this amount of storage allocated for this virtual machine. I don't like to select the fixed size. I like to use dynamically allocated. As it says here, dynamically allocated hard disk file will only use the space that you need, actually. Okay, so it is, and if you need, if your requirement is up to the fixed size, then that's it. But usually when you start an operating system, and you have 25 gig, it's not gonna use the entire 25 gig. It's gonna use part of that. So that's why my preference is to use the dynamically allocated. Now, as I told you guys, this virtual machine is going to be a file. What's the file? Located in C users. This is your home directory, and this is the subdirectory for the VirtualBox, all the different virtual machines. Now the virtual machine that I created is called VM1 underscore Linux, and is going to be stored in a VDI file. So this is the file that's going to hold the virtual machine. Now I will keep the default. I don't like to change it unless if I want to move it into my flash disk or external portable drive and so on. So that's why you could change the location, and it's better to keep it, of course, keep the name. But as I told you, I want to use 25 gigabyte, not 8 gigabyte, because I might need them for future use. Select create. That's it. The virtual machine is here. It's ready. You need to think about now the virtual machine as a box. That's why we call it Oracle VirtualBox. It's a box, it's a hardware, and this is like the BIOS. Okay, so we have general specification, system specification, display, storage, audio, network, USB, shared folders, and so on. But this is the box that we created. We can turn it on, power it on, and this is like the BIOS. We can look at the BIOS, for example, system. You can see that this is what we have selected, 2 gigabyte. Now keeping in mind The beauty about Oracle VirtualBox or virtualization, you can change or you can increase the memory, decrease the memory. These are the resources or the processor, or the acceleration, the characteristics. So let's say, for example, you want it to be 1 gigabyte. Okay. Now keep in mind, this has to be powered off to do these things. But of course, I'm not gonna change it. Now also the processor you can modify. This is for advanced users and advanced characteristics. So I will keep it for another video to explain all these advanced features. But for now I don't want to do anything. But all what you need to understand that this is your BIOS. Okay, basically you can look at the specification, you can change it. For the network, this is going to be very important for us because we are going to implement more than one adapter and we are going to set up a network, USB as well, storage. You can also add additional drives and so on. So this is like the box. Now this is will conclude my demonstration on how to download Oracle VirtualBox and install it and also create a virtual machine. Again, it's a machine, it's empty, there is no operating system in it. In the next video I'm going to demonstrate to you how to install Linux in this case. Now of course, I want to demonstrate how to install Linux Fedora, so I might even create another one just to call it Fedora so I could explain it more. So for now guys, thank you very much and I'll see you in the next video.